Good day. We are once again here at the African Musicians Trust, and I am sitting speaking to one of the most incredible female artists that our nation has produced. I'm talking to Sophia Foster. She is a legend. As I even mention her name, I got goosebumps right down my back, because she is probably one of those artists that is, in her opinion, she keeps herself very down to earth, but when she gets up on that stage and you put a mic in her hand, you know that there's class. I caught her at the Cape Town International Jazz Festival, and she didn't even know I was there, but I was sitting and I was drinking in what she had to give us. So Sophia, it's lovely to have you here in the studio. I want to ask, where did it all start? Where was it? Cape Town, Joburg, PE? Where did Sophia Foster, the young girl, where did she start with her musical career?
To be quite honest, my whole family sang in the church choir. I grew up in Wynberg, Clarence Road, Wynberg, and luckily for us, the church was close by, the schools were close by. So we used to, on a Saturday, our family, the kids, our job was for pocket money, we used to clean the church, you go and polish, dust, and you put the flowers in, and my one brother used to be lazy, and he'd say, give us his pocket money to any one of us if we didn't tell my parents that they were learning to play piano on the church organ, you know.
Okay. So that was your Saturday afternoon preparation for Sunday?
Correct.
Wonderful.
Correct. And the amazing thing was that despite the fact that I sang in the Sunday school choir, in the youth choir, and in the church choir, which was like what we call the groot choir, like with the adults, the amazing thing was I was a first soprano. That's why my mom wanted me to pursue opera.
Okay.
And because I chose the other way, which was like more jazz, commercial pop, whatever, she used to say, oh, so now you choose to sing for the devil. And I had to carry that with me
for the rest
of my life, and trying to prove to her that the devil was definitely not
present
wherever I performed.
Absolutely.
And the great thing was that with all the different choirs in church, I also had, with my mom, and I was first soprano, my mom was alto, I had 2 tenor brothers and 1 baritone brother. So we were all like in the choir, and then we had another choir outside our church, which was like a mass choir that used to go around the peninsula and compete. You know, so it was like, there was a lot of different influences, but it was basically gospel. And this one brother of mine who was like stealing lessons on his own in the church, he used to go and buy vinyls. He used to go buy LPs
long playing
of jazz greats. And those years it was not the type of sound you had, it was how big was your radio and record player.
Yes.
You know, so it could like really be the size of a coffin.
Yes.
You know, and you'd have this record player inside. He used to play Miles Davis, Oscar Peterson. And strangely enough, I never had the opportunity to listen to female artists then growing up. I just had my influence from church and then listening to Oscar Peterson, and up till today I remember a particular title of an Oscar Peterson melody that stuck with me forever. It was called Hymn to Freedom, as in hymns that you sing in church.
Yes.
It was called Hymn to Freedom. I get goosebumps because I still hear that melody. This man had fingers that was gliding over his keyboards, and it sounded like the ocean, like the waves building up.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, beautiful. And females that I listened to would be whoever was playing on the radio.
Right.
You know, and it was Springbok radio always, and the Springbok hits and stuff like that.
Yes.
And my earliest collection of any jazz artist was Ella and Sarah, and I sang to my brother, "Wat is die geluid wat hulle maak?" Then he'd say, "You call it scatting." You know?
Yes.
I didn't know the meaning. You know, my only regret is that there was no formal training available to artists of colour and musicians of colour. We learned either very seldom by sight. It was more on a gut thing.
Yeah. Listening to the LPs.
You listen to the LPs and you go with your gut. I think that will suit me. And you didn't even think like, I have to choose a key that suits me, because you weren't educated enough
To know.
musically educated enough to know that.
Yeah.
You know, so everything was on gut. And you won't believe it, years later, working on international stages, that gut has taken me all over the world, because a lot of times I had to fall back on that when certain things didn't fall into place that were supposed to be there or available to make me sound or look better. I fell back on the gut of like, no knowledge, just go with it.
Yes.
You know, and make the moment happen.
Yeah.
So I've based most of my life on gut, and it's never ever failed me.
Wow. And so you started in the church. At what stage did Sophia, because I remember you as a young boy being an artist from Cape Town, and then...
Did you hear he said a young boy?
Yes.
Him
Because
being
I
the
used to
young
play
boy.
soccer.
No, I was the young boy. Now, I remember you when I was a young boy.
I'm just
and you,
testing.
but then you disappeared off the Cape Town sea.
Yes.
You left for greener pastures. You went to Johannesburg.
Yeah. Because my mother was still on this thing, because she'd hear me singing along with artists that she didn't want me to identify with.
Correct.
Because the decent thing, it was like parents those years, even up till today you find parents, I want my child to be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. So that those years would have been something really prestigious or whatever, would be, my daughter is
an opera singer.
Opera singer.
Yes.
You know, it sounded very...
Yeah, or she's a classical musician.
Neda.
Yeah, but jazz is associated with nightclubs.
Exactly, and the devil.
Yeah.
It was always the devil.
The devil made me do it.
So when I came to, you know, a point where I thought, hang on, I cannot be going round and round doing the same type of thing all the time.
Yeah.
I wanted to spread my wings, and I went with this gut. I'm going to go to Johannesburg, but I knew my parents would not allow me to.
Did you have a contact? Did someone?
There was.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
there were contacts in Johannesburg.
Right.
And they had started working in a hotel.
Right.
Club in a hotel.
Okay.
And based on that, they said to me, here's a gap for you. But you will not believe it, I still wasn't really recognized as a singer. I was a chorus line dancer.
So you danced
Yes. I was
as a chorus line?
Yes,
and you
then,
sort of...
and then they would say to me, okay, you can do a duet with the star of the show. So I would go sing with whoever is like the big guy in the show. I'd do a duet with that person. And Connie Francis came to South Africa, performed at the Lakshirama. Myself and a lady who was like a lead singer in the show, her and I did a duet with the Connie Francis song, Where the Boys Are.
Wow.
We did that in a duet form. But I was not good enough, according to the people that I was doing production
Four.
for, to be
a lead singer. But yet Connie Francis had to sing with her.
Yes, never. And so for me to leave that and go try my luck as a solo performer is my way into it, because when I got to Johannesburg I was told, listen, you still have to do like a backup dancing thing, but we'll give you a solo.
And we're talking now, we're talking old South Africa, we're talking apartheid era.
Yes.
You are a so-called coloured girl from Cape Town, and you've now got to break into the television arena.
That's
Whoa.
right. But now that came much later.
Right.
Because prior to that, this show that I'd auditioned for, where I was like a chorus line dancer, we used to go on tour every year at the same time. We rehearsed at the Luxurana, and then we would take the road and go and perform in every dorpie and big town in South Africa. Thank you, my daughter. I can see this is made with love.
Thank you, Suzelle.
Thanks so much. And those years, there were no hotels for people of colour. There wasn't even one hotel available for people of colour. We either slept on the bus or we slept in a school, because when we hit that town, it's during the school holidays. So we'd be able to sleep in school. So they would take all the desks out of the classes and we would put our stretchers and sleep there. Otherwise, we'd sleep in the wall where we performed. They just closed the curtains and we'd set the stretchers on top of the stage. The girls always were separated from the boys. You slept on the stage, and the guys, they'd push the seating back of the audience and put their stretchers there. And one year, I'll never forget, we were somewhere in the Transvaal, and it was like one of these real boerendorpies. And I promise you, I want you to try and visualize sleeping in a stable, right? Where you've let the cows and the horses, whatever, that's where they sleep. That's after grazing the whole day.
They come in and...
They come in and that's where they sleep.
Yes.
We'd have our stretchers there, right? And you come out of that, and your bath, your shower, is a bucket of water that you've gone to go and tap by die boer se plaas. Jy gaan tap warme water, and you have a basin, so you would wash like that. You would take out of it. Then you get your show makeup, and you're wearing your beautiful dress, and you go on stage. From
the barn
to the stage.
There's a book from the barn to the stage.
but that was, it was, once you got off stage, that whole world that you build around yourself, you know, all you can
for that hour.
For that hour, is gone when you come off stage, because then reality hits you. You are traveling in a country that is rife with apartheid, that is filled with humiliation, you know, where the Afrikaners, with their double standards, there were amazing Afrikaner people. One year we were chased out of a barn.
So you weren't even good enough for the barn accommodation?
Yes, we were chased out for the simple reason that one of the audience members went to the toilet and saw one of the non-white female artists using the toilet and kicked up a whole big thing. And the next thing they were saying, we must boycott the show because these black people are using our toilets and all that. And there were people who were so used to having the show every year over that period of time. They used to pack out the shows because they had no other entertainment. There was no television in that time.
Absolutely.
So when this happened and they wanted to evict us, you know, for someone using their toilets, what they didn't know, we were using their toilets and showers during the day before they arrived. And You know, as you call it, with Arastan, like a watch to see this.
Yeah.
So that was their double standards.
Yeah.
You know, because they would go to the guy who was managing us and say, "Ek soek daai maatjie daar, daai hoort not maatjie." Yes.
Sure.
You know. And so they were prepared to go to bed with
one of the girls, but
that
you cannot use their showers.
Exactly, exactly. So the hotel thing only started in the 70s.
Wow.
When I was now touring with Jonathan Butler, Richard John Smith, Ronnie Joyce,
Lionel
Peterson, Bones,
yes,
and the Rockets.
Yes.
We hit the roads. The 70s, that's when hotels were slowly opening
and
up.
wasn't Ivan Ross part of that?
Yes, they were all.
Yeah.
came in.
Now I'm just trying to remember names now, because that's you see, that's where I again got to hear about Sophia Foster.
Yeah.
When, you know, because you had disappeared from the Cape Town scene, and like South Africa, if the Americans don't bring their music here, we are deprived in a way. And so when you leave Cape Town, you know, we don't see you, we don't have you perform until, of course, you came back. But then you were this big star.
Yeah, because my break was when I had to replace an American artist who actually had to cancel on the last minute because they were told those years, if any American artist came to perform in South Africa, apartheid South Africa, when they went back, they
would be boycotted. That's right.
Blacklisted.
I think George Benson broke that in one of the years. He decided he's going to...
In later years.
Yes, later
years it was.
But I know, initially, nobody came.
Yeah.
Nobody came.
So a lot of them wanted to come to Africa. So what they did, they worked in the neighboring states.
That's right. Botswana, Swaziland, Lesotho,
Correct.
those areas.
And I was queen of the circuit then.
Okay.
I had long-term contracts in all those hotels, right? And when I came out of there, I got involved with the Richards, the Jonathans, and all that. And we went on tour for 6 months.
Right.
And
throughout Southern Africa.
Throughout Southern Africa, and we were living in hotels now.
Yeah.
You know, it was acceptable, so it was really a big deal thing. So when I today see artists taking all those things for granted.
For granted, yeah. Yeah, they haven't earned the stripes.
Correct.
They haven't earned the stripes.
Talking about earn, it's the same with the title of diva.
Yeah.
You know, you have to earn.
Earn diva status. I agree with you.
You have to earn diva status, you have to earn legend status.
Legend status.
And I must say that in a big way, I feel because of my humble and humiliating and degrading beginnings.
Circumstances that you've had to go through. It makes you a different person.
It makes me a better person, makes me a stronger person.
The fact that you've even stood the test of time, going through all of what you're just saying. Because I played with Tony Schilder, and Tony told me a story one day, because we were talking like this, and he was saying, Glenn, you don't know what it was like being a coloured musician in a white band. He said, I was playing at a hotel in Cape Town, South Africa, and I was the piano player and I was coloured, and the rest of the band were white. The rest of the band could eat in the lounge. Yes. I had to eat in the kitchen.
Exactly.
It broke my heart.
Yeah. And you had to go around the back, up the fire escape to get to the venue if it was upstairs, and you could only see the audience when it was time for you to perform. You had to
You couldn't mingle.
You couldn't mingle.
Wow.
And you were told, and it didn't matter how much applause you got, right?
You were still just the performing artist.
You had to walk straight out of the venue, and you couldn't use it. I'm going to tell you a little secret. Because I'll never forget, in Durban, we worked at this venue for probably a year. Our contract
What was
lasted.
it called?
It was called Club Casino.
Okay.
Although there were no casinos at the time.
Yes, yes.
It was owned by a Jewish guy called Harry Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
And every great musician that you know of
came through there, yeah.
The Tonys, all the Shoulders, Roy Peterson, Brian Abrams, who ended up playing at Ronnie Scott's
Drummer, yeah.
Right? And this was a man that could play his drums beautifully, start
And sing as well.
People would put down their knives and forks when this man started singing.
Yeah.
And so what
Is
happened?
Brian still alive?
Yes, he's still around. He comes to visit Cape Town now and again.
Is it? I'd love to meet him.
I was asked Madeline Bell, who's playing drums for her now at Ronnie Scott's, because he was a resident at Ronnie Scott's.
And P.P. Arnold, you are also a good friend of Madeline, who is a good friend of Sophia, and you never got to meet Sophia. Next time.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, it can only be, yes, I told her, do not disturb me. And what happened, Glenn, is that, I've lost my train of thought through this charm. Tiffany? Okay, now have your lunch at the Quen place. I love you. Mommy's still busy.
I love it. This has got to be included.
I forgot to sing this song.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Anyway, so this club casino with all these brilliant musicians, coloured musicians, you know, when we used to queue up for our pay. Now, what people didn't know, our accommodation was, we were living in, at the time I was sleeping with my colleagues in a garage.
Sure.
The garage was attached to the house, a mansion owned by a gang boss. And that was our protection. We could go anywhere. Anyway, so what happened was, behind the stage of this venue, and Gary Creel also.
Okay.
Gary Creel, and I mean, those were the gigs that you'd work till early in the morning, right?
Right.
Nobody had cars. We didn't even own bicycles. So you had to wait for transport. You had to wait till everybody was finished. So behind the stage, there was the screen dividing us from the stage, which was like a passage.
Right.
A passage as narrow as from that silver thing to this desk.
Yeah.
In the passage was one window that was always open because it was no aircon, and the guy, we could see the people with Destiny's passing in the road.
Yes.
In Smith Street, Durban.
Yes.
So the guys were fine. If they wanted to wee, we were not allowed to use the toilets because it was for white only. If the guys wanted to wee, they'd wee out by the window. And so now the girls have a predicament, right? So there was a piano, an old piano chair that was a stool, piano stool about this big, that was like at the back of the stage. So the girls wanted to do, the guys had to turn and look the other way, and we would actually go and sit in a row on this piano, so we just lift the cover.
You did have a bucket or something underneath.
That was our lunatic. And I promise you, we ended up working so long, almost a year in this venue, and this guy had a problem paying us. So we went in, it wasn't the first time, and ironically, more or less the same musicians. Now I'll tell you those years what musicians did if they didn't get paid and they'd been working for months, right? You go into the kitchen, and if you needed crockery, cutlery, whatever, you help yourself. Others who've never eaten prawns, they would stack frozen prawns into bags and what have you, and whatever. And there were guys who were really angry. They were taking furniture and throwing it through the same window that they were weeing every night. But you didn't get paid, so you had to now look at other ways. And there was no recourse. I mean, you couldn't take this person on, or you didn't have, because you were working there illegally in the first place. You know, I see. Because the cops used to raid these places. Some of these places didn't have liquor licenses. Okay, so you were there illegally. Yes. I mean, because some of the venues, you were there illegally. No, I remember there were some venues that later on even started having a quota system. So you could have 60% white, 30% coloured, and maybe 10% black in the venue. Now, the irony was that the man owning the venue or managing the venue would say to you, no fraternizing with the customers. I don't want to lose my license. So you were, now Jonathan Butler was like this, and he used to sing like then already.
Yeah.
And the white people used to go mad and want to grab and hug this, guy. And there were prostitutes in the club that were coloured, but they used to play white. So as we passed, they'd say to whoever they were grabbing that night, they'd say, "Oh, give a 10 rand to the singer." And for Jonathan, they'd say, "Oh, that's a little boy that was, give him a 20 rand, So we'd be getting...
You'd be getting tips as well as your gig
prostitutes, but they stopped straight, and you had to leave the venue, you had to leave the premises, but, all these things, it makes you a stronger person.
Yeah, you see, there's a saying that I often use. Gifts are given, but fruit is grown.
Absolutely.
And that's where you grow the fruit. Learning to live through difficulties, through hardships, through trials, through tribulations, that is what makes a diva a diva. Not just singing a hit song and it's played, for 1 week on Cape, one of the stations. No, you've got to earn your legendship. You've got to earn your divaship. I agree with you.
That's right. And funny enough, I was asked this the other day. Someone spoke about, when was it that we actually, South Africa got television? You remember when we got television?
I used to watch the test pattern. The test pattern.
The test pattern that used to come on, right? But it was in black and white, remember?
Yes,
we didn't just get colour.
No, we had black and white TVs.
So, what was like really hysterical was, I was the first South African singer of colour, female singer of colour on television in South Africa. 1976.
Yes.
So the news, I did this in Johannesburg, so the newspaper in Cape Town, the caption read, "First black on the box." And I use that line forever in my shows just to get a laugh.
I'm the first black on the box.
Exactly.
On the goggle box.
Yeah.
Wow. This is amazing. I can sit, I do these interviews, and I must tell you, it is such a joy, because as I was saying to you earlier on, Gary Hendrickse is such a wealth of knowledge and history, musical history. He'll tell you who performed, who was the band, and who stood in for who at that gig. I mean, he is down to the I can sit in this, I used to drive Robbie Jansen home to Kales River, and I would sit in the car till 2, 3 in the morning, and Robbie would just recount stories after stories after story, and I would just soak it in. Because at school I never liked history, but yet I love musical history. I love to learn about all of these guys, and why do we only say Ezra's a legend and Zane's a legend and Winston's after they die? Yeah. They must be recognized now.
My pride in getting to know the likes of Robbie Jansen was the fact that I was already touring with these people, and we were playing like the worst venues, just to share our gift.
Yes.
And Robbie was just a singer, and I don't know where he got the saxophone from, but why I'm saying I pride myself in knowing him history with him, is that I was there when he started learning to play the saxophone.
Sax. So you didn't know Robbie the Amazing. You learned to get to know Robbie the sickling on the sax.
Exactly.
I believe he started playing guitar with the Rockets, singing and playing guitar. And he felt that he wanted to introduce a wind instrument to the Rockets, and that's how the sax came in.
Yeah.
But so you know him from those days. Toe hy nog skraal gewees het.
That's right, and the Rockets were all skraal. And I remember the big afros, and the platform shoes and what have you. And Robbie used to, early in the morning, used to start like practicing, to master this instrument. And someone got very vereerd this one day. They went and stuck a shoe inside the saxophone, like, enough already. you know. And it's amazing. I reminded him about this
Yes.
before he passed away.
Yes,
We were
yes.
doing an interview or something.
Yeah.
With someone. We were just standing outside chatting, and I said, "Do you recall a time when you were just learning and someone got angry because you never stopped, you know, making these sounds and, you know, they just stuck a shoe in there?" Like, he looked at me and he said, "Ek dink ek onthou."
It's not something you want to onthou because it's a like, you make.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, moving on now. But I want to just know, who was the person that believed in Sophia Foster to get her from the stage in a small town onto SABC or onto Pop Shop or onto, I remember the programs that you used to appear with the likes of Dennis East and those guys, because it wasn't the norm.
It wasn't.
You did break, you broke a lot of taboos where
correct.
you know, colored people were not.
I was the first.
Yeah.
I was the first.
Yeah.
So I always see myself as this person with the spade.
A pioneer,
Absolutely. Yes, opening doors or whatever, because they'd say to me like, "Listen, you're the first person walking down this passage to go and do this." Then I had some TV musical program was coming out, so they got, I don't know if you remember television showing the rugby thing, and then this guy with a ponytail, the Yebo Gogo.
Yes. Depina.
Michael
Depina, yeah, I remember.
Now, Michael Depina and I had a very close relationship. We worked quite happily together.
He's the leopard skin guy.
In the Black States,
Yes.
which was fine. We used to sing our duets and people used to love it because it was new, this colored girl with this
white guy,
and blah,
yeah.
blah, blah. And the next thing, we are invited to do a duet on SABC. So firstly, I'd come from my dressing room. I'm sorry, Sophia, that dress is a bit too revealing. Can you wear something more? Anyway, so I eventually pleased him by wearing something that looked like a nun. And there's Michael waiting for me in his tuxedo, live band, everything, and we're going to do this duet. You won't believe it, they did not show it on TV. Why? The newspaper said, white and colored, too close for comfort. Yeah.
Oh.
Because during the duet, when the band,
So somewhere in the archives, there is that show.
Yes.
Have they ever played it ever again?
Do you know, I would love to get in the SAB archives.
They are
because I have done hundreds, if not thousands, of live
performances.
Yes,
But
yes.
not hardly any of them were screened because of the whole colour thing.
There was yeah. So, I mean, imagine you open the newspaper and it says, artist too close for comfort. Another newspaper read, because when we'd sing and then the band, there's a music break, so the two of us did a dance.
Yes.
Right? And then went back and took our microphones and they were saying, Sophia Foster and Michael Depina, too close in Foxtrot. You know, they call it like dancing the Foxtrot. You know, I wish I can recall half the stuff I've done that was edited.
Yeah.
I was in the first South African multiracial musical, where we had a Zulu, a Xhosa, we had Tali Peterson, Solly Jr., myself.
Solly Jr. was the guy who did the Engelbert.
Humperdinck.
Yes.
And
Is Solly still alive?
I got no idea.
Sure.
And the guy who taught Tali Peterson to write songs, to write music.
Wow. Who was he?
He was called Sammy Brown.
Sammy.
The most rounded performer from nowhere. He was a Joburg guy.
Yeah.
He sang like, his voice was like none other.
Wow.
Very original. And he notes like Michael Jackson, those years. And he could dance. He was a natural dancer. And he did the narration in this multiracial show.
Yes.
But we were sort of, our spirit was crushed from the beginning already. Despite the thought that we were making a breakthrough, like this multiracial, like this, Afrikaners and people from the UK, and the star was flown in from America, Hal Waters, he was playing Pippin, and all of us around him, like just a rainbow of South African talent.
Yeah.
We used to have the censor board sit in our rehearsals, watch us do our choreography, and they'd say, listen, you have to change that because that colored girl, she can't be doing that with that white guy. You have to think of something else. You've got to improvise and change that. Listen, that
goodness.
African boy is too close to that white woman there, you know. And so you are actually breaking down with the result that this show, at great expense, by Des and Dawn Lindbergh, who had the most beautiful intentions.
Yeah.
At great expense, they put the show on at His Majesty's Theatre. It ran for a while. By the way, the audiences were not even mixed then. They had to have special nights for blacks only, where we could perform for our people. And leaving the theatre at night time, there was one place that used to be open, and we'd be starving because on a Saturday there'd be 2 shows, and there was a break in between the 2 shows. So the whites used to leave the theatre and go sit and eat in a restaurant. And we used to go just around the corner, this tiny window, and buy sandwiches and tea or coffee in cartons, and go back and sit in the dressing room and have our meal. And one night, I remember her name like it was yesterday, Andre Hatting, Afrikaans actress. Her and Craig came to my dressing room and said, listen, we work together as a family. I'd already been nagged by the American artists saying, why can't we just go and see a movie? And I said, look, this country has a law, we are not allowed to mix. Yes, but we're working on stage like a family. I said, yes, at a price. And Andre and Craig said, you're coming with us to a restaurant to go and have a meal. And I said, hey guys, you're born in South Africa, you know what the law is. I'm not going to go and put myself out there, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Craig started crying. And Andre, they're saying, we are so close in this production. We are really like a family. And this is bullshit, you know?
Absolutely.
And just looking at them, I got into my street clothes and I said, let's go. Where do you want to go? We went to a little restaurant down the road, had a table by the window. The people passing stopped dead in their tracks and were pointing fingers at me, this black woman sitting in a white restaurant. None of the waiters came to serve us. We sat there for half an hour. Andre got up and she said, listen, we've been sitting here for half an hour. How come you haven't even come and ask us what we want to drink or whatever? They said, not while you got that black woman sitting at your table. We can't serve you, you know.
Wow.
Now, when I'm talking to you about this now, because it's a thought that's come into my head of how it really was then, to talk to today, the African artist and musician and the colored musicians, we are still living in a them and they. Them and us. Meanwhile, back then, we were painted with the same brush.
That's right.
You know, I wasn't colored or Muslim or anything. I was black.
You were black.
I couldn't go
Absolutely.
where the white person, I couldn't sit on the bench.
So there was solidarity in terms of black and coloreds. Exactly. But now there's even that schism.
There's that division.
You
know? And it pains me. There's so much aina in this industry, and And all these thoughts now that you've triggered off to remind me what we went through.
Yeah.
Was it for nothing? It's
No.
like Mandela lying in his grave and saying, did I really go through all this for people to now be living the way they are living?
No, I believe that pioneers, pioneers, if you think of a pioneer in a forest, you will always get the backlash of the branches and the trees and the thorns, and he's going to get the cuts. But at the end of the day, those who follow don't walk through that same path. They drive on tarred roads.
Precisely.
They drive on gravel. And so that is the very, very reason why, Sophia, I honor you today as a legend. I honor Ezra, Zane. If it were not for Zane, I don't think I would have been an artist in my own right. Because of him, I aspired to become something. Because of him, because of Robbie, because of Achilles.
You have made that admission right now.
Yes.
To be in print, to be on camera.
Yes.
Now, I've got news for you. There are female singers in this country who would sit with me and say, Sophia, when I was still very young, I used to sneak into the venues where you were performing and I used to say, I want to be like her one day. And others would say, I actually, the way you dressed and all that, I was really, that is where I learned to, and they'd say it to me. Now they do a TV interview, they'd say, my first inspiration was Tina Turner and only international people.
Exactly. That's why my next question is, who is your local hero? Who inspired you? Because each and every one of us have been inspired in different ways by different people. And yes, somehow South Africans, they always aspire to be American. Even their accents become American, But there are people, I can say, Zane, Leslie Klainsmith, yourself. I mean, to watch you guys on TV as a little younger and looking and saying, if they can do it, I'm sure we can do it. That's so who was your local hero and who was your international hero?
Now, you will not believe it. I actually gave goosebumps. Nobody actually gave this woman the acknowledgement that she deserved then.
Sure.
It was a woman called Yvonne Clutie. She was short, but there was no voice in the whole of Cape Town like Yvonne Clutie, right?
Wow.
Nobody.
I've never even heard of Yvonne.
Exactly.
Sure.
Now, she married a singer called Freddie Isaacs. He sang like Eddie Eckstein.
I love.
But exactly like Eddie Eckstein. And Yvonne's voice was unique in the sense that she would be singing a song, argument's sake, Shirley Bassey. But it was her.
Do you mean Billy Eckstein?
Billy Eckstein.
Billy Eckstein, the guy that's like Nat King Cole a little bit? Yeah, Billy Eckstein. Eddie Eckstein is the bat.
I know, I keep saying that because I know Eddie also.
Billy Eckstein. He's one of my favorites. He's one of my international.
Really?
Billy Eckstein, Nat King Cole.
But I mean, you had to hear this man.
Wow, I would love
and you could close your eyes. I'm all funny Cape Flats.
Yeah.
And now this woman, what impressed me about her, I was the snot nose that used to look up to this woman. She would, those years, the musos used to ride on the train and the bus with their instruments, right? And she used to get on the bus in her evening dress, makeup on already, and she'd wear a coat over the dress she was going to sing in. But between her and a dressmaker, they did the most cleverest thing so that she didn't walk through the streets and get on the train and the bus in a long dress. They had a thing that they had press studs here, so to make the
so
dress...
she just unclip it.
Yes, when she gets
Clever.
to she just unclip it. So, I mean, for me to remember these little things, like decades later, would prove to you why I actually turned out to be like the dressed,
Yes, because presentation is important.
Yes, yes.
So important.
Yes, and I've always prided myself in presentation,
Yeah.
you know, and it really galls me when I look at our younger generation who couldn't give a hoot of
Yeah.
what they walked on stage for.
Yeah.
If they wanted to walk on stage the way they might as well be sitting in the audience.
Exactly.
Your audience pays to come and see a finished product.
That's right.
You know,
I agree.
a polished,
I agree.
finished product.
I
But
agree.
there is there's no respect for that.
You see, and what I think what some of the artists don't even realize is that a corporate company is not going to book you if your pants is hanging down here and your underpants is showing.
Every time you bend down to turn your
They want to book a band that is going to be smart, that's going to be presentable, that's going to do well musically. The sound is there, they're on time.
Yeah.
They don't come without a cable. Musicians, you don't come without a cable to a gig. If you're playing a guitar, you have a jack-to-jack cable.
En weet jy, prating van jack-to-jack cable, like some of the female artists, they used to wait if I'm going to be doing a TV production and I'm working with other females or stage production, dan kyk hulle in 'n dark of Sophia in met 'n hele wardrobe. 'n hele wardrobe van gowns. That, I mean, you, like a musician comes with their tools.
Yes.
Those were my tools.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's like Craig says, by the way, that's where I met Craig, on that multiracial...
We're talking about Craig Steyn, a
Mahabi.
good-looking young man.
That's where I met Craig, on this multiracial musical, where he would not accept that I couldn't go and sit in a restaurant with him.
Oh.
And years later, him and I were still fighting the Group Areas Act. Up till the day we got married, in his wedding speech, he actually thanked Nelson Mandela for making it possible for the two of us to actually get married, you know.
Precious.
Yeah, so all good things have been nice. Some have a nice ending.
Okay, just before we get to our last question, what was the tipping point for you in your career? And Sophia, if you were born 20 years later, you would have been internationally acclaimed because you went through what you did go through, and because we didn't, and I often say that about Zane, if Zane and Pacific Express had been born 20 years later, they would have been like the Yellow Jackets, like Earth, Wind and Fire. They'd be traveling the world, they'd be playing in every country in the world, and they'd be making a hit. But because of our stupid apartheid system, which is now trying to be implemented again from the other side, we have got to stop that. We have got to realize that we are all human, and we all have the opportunity to make our nation proud. Be it a sportsman, a singer, a musician. There's not just the elect few. But if you had been born 20 years later, do you feel a little bit of regret, remorse, sadness?
Sadness, yes. Sadness because we are still divided.
Mm.
We are still divided as a nation. We are still divided as artists, as musicians. We are still referring to each other as them and us.
Yeah.
And you talk about 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, I asked myself the question, would I make my situation in my country better if I became an exile?
Mm.
I kept asking myself that question because years later, when exiles came back,
they were
treated like royalties.
As celebrities.
Meanwhile,
The guys who stuck it out.
They were treated like celebrities.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm one of those who stayed.
And
I
you
stayed
developed
to
here.
make it better.
Yeah.
I stayed to develop the art, and I stayed to open doors.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say...
Look, there were some who were forced to exile. There were some from a political perspective.
Correct.
But there were those who chose just to
Yes,
go for a
yes.
better life.
And guess what? When I changed that train of thought by going to an international space,
Where you've just been. You've been to New York.
to try
Broadway.
my art and what I had learned here, my experience, to go and experiment in another country. And the fact that I was welcomed with such open arms and respect for where I'd come from and what they were offering me. I'd never been offered that here, back
Wow.
home. And this was coming from people who were not my color. For anybody, I mean, I don't think at the time that I could express to anybody how blessed I felt that out of the blue, from a little cassette tape like that, with my voice on,
Someone knew you.
someone had
and
heard me
respected
and
you.
offered me a 5-year contract.
Wow.
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
And I must say to you, I was not, I didn't trust it. And until this man took me to his office, Craig happened to be with me in in Germany at the time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe my luck, you know. And when that door opened, I was ready. I was just so ready, and the next thing I had a 10-piece orchestra which had become bigger. Every time I was flown in, because my conditions, I said, thank you so much for showing me the respect and offering me 5 years to work in your country. I said, I hope you don't mind, but I cannot live in your country. As much as I want to come here and work here, I cannot live in your country. And I'm prepared to come every time. And you know what? For 5 years, they flew me in and out of the country. Sometimes 3 times a month, whatever. I was going in and doing big corporate gigs.
Yes.
You know? And, I mean, that just made me...
And somebody heard you on a cassette.
Yes.
They didn't even see
That's
the
right.
beauty
No.
and the figure. And I'm saying that truthfully because I don't want to mention your age, but I think you carry yourself very well. You've still maintained your figure, you've still maintained everything, you've still maintained your dignity, and I still think that you're a class act. And I think you should be performing here at this beautiful venue more often, but we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
Last question, or last statement. I'd like you to look at the camera and to say to young South African artists, producers, directors, singers, a little word of advice from Sophia Foster.
This I've been asked to do quite a few times, to actually give advice to a younger generation. When you start out, if you can always tap your energy from where you started, from your roots, to keep grounded. Because the problem is a lot of the younger generation, they've gotten things very easily. And you know what? I'm happy to say that I'm glad that I was one of the people who gave you a tar road to drive your car on to get to the gig. And for you to be able to afford a car to get to the gig. The musos during my time traveled by train and by bus. I'm going to say to you, if you can keep grounded, I'm still out there. It's over 5 decades later. And I still feel blessed enough to share everything which I have learned over the years. I still feel, thank God, blessed that I can pass it on to the next generation. The only thing is, do our generations respect what I have to offer enough for you to be humble enough to say, hey, can I come and sit with you? I have, for the past few years, I have actually offered my experience to ever is eager enough, enthusiastic enough, and eager enough to come and just absorb and allow me to share with you, you know, if you want growth. That's if you want growth. To grow up as what I call the freedom children. Guys, bless you for getting everything the easy way. Some of you have been handed things on a plate because you have influences around you, or you have your cousin's cousin knows somebody that can get you in there. You know something? That's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. If you can't clear a path for yourself on your own steam and still keep your integrity intact, then you know, then you're always going to be struggling. That's just my opinion. You'd always struggle. I have maintained, I thank Glenn for acknowledging. We don't acknowledge each other enough.
Enough, yeah.
You know?
It's true.
I'm not asking for a pat on the back.
No.
At all.
Recognition.
But I am saying it would be great if we kept tapping into our roots and the people who made it possible.
Yes.
For us to be flying today.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, that's about it.
And just the last word from me. Thank you very much, Sophia Foster. We will be doing a lot more. I believe that together. And I want to. Yes.
Sorry, now I'm going to cut
yes.
you. Just something that.
Go for it. Go for it.
When we started speaking earlier off mic, I was telling you about my recent trip to New York.
Yeah, to Broadway.
To Broadway, where I witnessed Jennifer Hudson. Now, when you sit down in the theatre, you can't wait for Jennifer Hudson to appear on stage. So when she does appear, the people are on their feet and they are screaming and clapping for Jennifer Hudson. I was so humbled that the Jennifer Hudson, as the show progressed, her role became smaller and smaller, because right there in the middle of all these talented people was this short little girl who had studied art and drama in London.
Yes.
She was an American. She was being pushed to the fore. Jennifer Hudson, the big name, was stepping aside to give this little girl a platform. Right to the last song in the show. This girl had the people on their feet, and Jennifer stood there singing harmony to what that girl was singing. So just to prove to you that, hey, even though she's a big name and she can be the diva, she's earned it.
She's earned it, yeah.
She gave space to allow this little young girl to bloom.
Wonderful.
And that is something
wonderful.
That I always treasure.
I've said a little earlier on, gifts are given, but fruit is grown. So don't just depend on the gift that God has given you. Grow the fruit of character in your life. God bless you.